Please join me in welcoming Carly Shea, Coco Brannan, and Will Meyer. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you want to sit in the middle?
I think I'm supposed to. It doesn't matter.
That was what we agreed to.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm so thrilled to be here today with Will and Courtney. I could talk about hotels until I'm blue in the face, but I know we only have a little bit of time, so we can just jump right in. Will is the co-founder of Meyer Davis, a studio that's known for creating hospitality spaces that feel deeply connected to their surroundings, from projects like the Four Seasons Astor Palace to Eterio Auberge in the Riviera Maya. And Courtney is a principal at Champalimaud, who's worked on some of the most iconic hotels, like the Beverly Hills Hotel in St. Regis, New York, reflect an extraordinary attention to craftsmanship and cultural context. I think when we talk about great hospitality design, we're often talking about something that's deeper than aesthetics. The spaces we remember most tend to feel inseparable from where they are, shaped by local materials, cultural references, and the history of the place itself. So looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about all of that. They've really built their careers around the delicate balance of evolving iconic properties and preserving the spirit that made them special in the first place. So without further ado, I'd love to start by hearing a little bit about the research that goes into your work when you approach a property that's historic or culturally significant. What does that look like for you? And are you doing a lot of archival research or spending time on the ground? What does that sort of shake out?
I'll start. The project that sort of comes to mind first when thinking about research is the St. Regis, New York, which you mentioned. I mean, I think there are different ways of approaching it, but like, for example, in that one, we really dove into the history. We found old imagery from the 1920s, from when it was originally built, and saw like, what did they take away? How has this hotel changed over the years? What can we bring back to bring this sort of sense of what the Astor family wanted it originally to be? So, for example, there were these really beautiful Tiffany stained glass windows that had originally been in the reception area and had been removed. We thought maybe we'd find them behind the wall, but they had actually been removed. So we recreated them. They're not Tiffany anymore, but we brought back that sort of sense of like, this is what the Astor family wanted here. And it had been taken away, and like adding those layers back in, and even some of the planning aspects of it. So that was a very interesting one, and sort of a different approach than sort of maybe what I would normally do. But another property, the St. Regis in Bali, that one was learning about Bali. Like, I had never been to Bali at that point. Now I've been 3 times. And sort of like, what makes Bali unique out of all of the islands of Indonesia? Like, why is that the one that everybody like knows and loves, and what makes it so different from all of these other islands and important, and like the craftsmanship that's there. So that's, some different ways of approaching it, but all very interesting to learn about. Like, that's one of my favorite things about our job, is like learning and researching and learning about history or whatever it is. But yeah.
Amazing.
No, I mean, I agree. It's the most fun part of a project is when you delve into the research of the place, where it is, how that can inform a design. And I think you see a drift from properties and brands wanting to have like a homogenous thing that is the same experience everywhere, into having a much more local kind of vernacular design that relates to where it is for that experience. And the research is what really builds that kind of library of ideas that you can bring to the property to give it kind of a soul.
Yeah, when we were talking the other day, you mentioned something about a hotel being a microcosm of a place, and I think it's so true that it's the first point of contact that travelers have with a destination, and can be what you remember the most. So do you think of your projects as like cultural interpretations of a place, or?
Yeah, to make a project fresh and something that really stands out and that people remember, I think having a sense of how to represent the cultural things that make a place important, interpreted into that interior environment is really important. The way to do that too, which I'm sure you might agree, is to sort of not be heavy-handed with it and kind of weave it into a narrative that becomes part of your whole experience. And it's a fine line between finding things that actually talk about a space and not being kind of too overt with how you deploy those things in your design.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I think there's a photo of it in the slideshow, but like for the Ritz-Carlton that we did in Grand Cayman, a lot of our design was really themed, thinking about like the narrative around this idea of the silver thatch palm, which is local only to Grand Cayman. And we interpreted it in so many different ways, but like one of those ways was by painting the bar this beautiful color of turquoise that is representing the underside of the silver thatch palm, because it has this sort of very unique blue tone to it. So that's how we wove that in. And it's really like, when you walk in there, it's like, wow, I'm in Cayman. Like this is, yeah. So I think, weaving in those ways of representing the place is, yeah, super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think so much texture and storytelling of a place comes through in those sort of details, but also like the materials you choose, and you both work with a lot of local artisans in your work. I'm curious, how do those sort of collaborations come about typically? Are you on the ground meeting people, or how does that work? How early do they come in the process?
Well, we have lovely 22 at the front, who we worked with on Belden House, a property that we did in Litchfield. And we did custom wallpapers with them. We found during the renovation wall coverings that had been in the home at some point, and we did these sort of modern reinterpretations of them, and we're fortunate enough to work with you guys. We worked with Charlie Dumais and did custom lamps there, and we did work with Ian Ingersoll, and I think that was so important to our client too, just using local people. So we had contacts with you guys anyway, but like for Bali, like we did hit the ground running, and like we were driving down the road and I saw these like limestone carvers on the side of the road, and I was like, stop, we gotta go. And they ended up doing artwork for us. So it's like, you kind of never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
I think the very first site visit is always really important. We're always with the client. We do, you kind of meet local people, experience local things. And for instance, like our project in Mauna Lani in Hawaii, I think one of the first dinners we had, one of the clients brought this guy over and said, hey, this guy paints murals around here. And he ended up painting these gigantic murals that are in the property. But like that can be 2 or 3 years from the time a project actually gets finished from when you start. So I think the other thing is to find that thread early on and figure out how to represent that and stay on narrative.
Mm-hmm. And still be agile to new influences as they come up, or? Yeah, very cool. With going back to the St. Regis Bali project, was there anything that emerged in your research that really shaped the direction of that project?
Yes. I mean, the client really wants to keep, speaking of sense of place, a very Balinese feel to it. But to me, it was interesting, like, underneath Bali is one of the largest coral reefs in the world. It's known as the Coral Triangle, and it's like this whole like world underneath the island. And then like thinking about the layers of that, and then the island itself, and all of the beautiful workmen and crafts, and like wood carving, limestone carving, weaving, leather, like all of these beautiful things. It's like this whole like story underneath the island and on the island of creativity and craft. And that was something that we wove into the story. And I found really interesting, just this whole little world under this island and on this island. Super fascinating.
Amazing. Will, one of the more historic properties you worked on, the Four Seasons Astor Place, dates back to the 50s or 60s. When you were working on a site with such a strong history and modernist legacy, how do you think about honoring the history of a place while still making it feel modern for today's traveler?
So Astor Place it's a unique property because it's on that peninsula, and if anyone knows it, before there's these two brutalist buildings that we completely gutted and reimagined. But because of the strong architecture, it sort of maintained that kind of iconic era that it's sort of based in. But again, reimagining it and with luxury in mind for Four Seasons, but also making it really tethered to the things that make Athens a wonderful place, the things that bring that historical quality to it. But I think it's just, again, it's researching and bringing the right materiality to the project and grounding it. Mm-hmm. It's a balance.
Yeah. Does the research approach change when it's a non-historic property significantly, or?
Yes. You looked like you had something to say immediately while I'm thinking.
So look, I prefer a project that has some bones,
Yeah.
even if it's anything that grounds it, because if you're starting from scratch, you sort of have to make it all up.
Yeah.
And it gives it something to sort of to start with.
Yeah.
Some parameters. I mean, that particular project, it's sort of it means a lot to the local Athenians, and I think a lot of people were nervous about what we would do to it, to kind of, are you going to ruin this place? Mm-hmm. But they love it,
yeah,
and they go there, and it's become sort of a continuation of the legendary property that it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a gift. Like you're gifted the history of the property, and you get to kind of anchor off of that, like you were saying, rather than starting from nowhere and building that and creating this sort of history or future, I guess, for this new property. It's not like it's easier, it's just different.
Mm-hmm. Starting point.
Yeah.
Was there ever a project you worked on where you feel like restraint was something super, like one of the more important decisions? I think when you have these historic properties, adding so much when there's already so much story there would be difficult.
Yes, and I think in a way, having to have restraint, for example, a budget, that's restraining in itself. So
I thought your projects didn't have budget.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? But I do think in a way that makes you be more creative. It's like, okay, what do I love so much about whatever this is that I've designed so far that I cannot lose? And then how can I make some of these other things, value engineer them to still sort of give off the design inspiration or intent, but achieve this in a way that our clients will be happy that their pockets have a little bit of money still in them. So I think, that's always a restraint for hotels.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about collaboration. Your firms are currently working together on the Cooper in Charleston, which is a beautiful luxury waterfront property. But I'm curious, what is it like when two design perspectives come together in a project like that? I know there's delineation of spaces, but how do you talk to each other about the overall vision?
So with the Cooper, it's an incredible new property that's from the ground up, and that's hard to do in Charleston, but the architecture was sort of set when we both got involved.
Yeah.
But look, really smart clients get cool people to work on it together. But we have an area that's sort of the entry and reception and, restaurant and porches and that kind of stuff. And then you're the rest of the hotel. So it's sort of these, I think what they did there was get two design teams working on their own areas to make the property more kind of energetic and lively. So you have different experiences within the same property, which I think is smart.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, that property in and of itself is something that Charleston's never going to be able to do again. It's going to be the only waterfront property in Charleston ever. So, I mean, it's a super special place.
And the clients are very cool, and they're taking
Super
their time.
invested and
Right.
Yeah.
And it will open soon, I think, in
In just
mid-April.
months.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's what they keep saying. It's going to open. Yeah.
It's like next week.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you guys return to a hotel that you've designed years later, what does it feel like to walk into that space and see how people are using it?
Like,
So cool.
oh, I'm at home. I don't know. I mean, it's true. Like, every time I go back to, like, the Ritz in Grand Cayman, like, it's like, yes, like, it just feels, like, really good. And it feels even better to see people, like, using it and loving it and taking photos to put on Instagram. And, like, it just is very,
It feels great.
It feels great.
There's-
Yeah.
We put so much of ourselves into these projects that it's really personal. And, you sort of, at the end of the day, you sort of design for yourself. And so when you walk in, you're like,
Feels like
this is
home. Yeah.
the way I want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I know we are on a little bit of a time crunch, but do we want to open it up to questions if anyone has anything? Yeah?
But I'm with Hollywood at Home and we release a lot of fabrics and furnishings. I was just wondering if you can kind of demystify what is really custom hospitality and what doesn't. It's very confusing on a vendor side because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's no linen, but then I'll literally see it in a hotel. I'm like, oh, did they just treat it? And you sell everything and you say, oh, just treat it. Like, can you demystify a little bit of like how if something like really has to be that or if there are exceptions?
Definitely like treatments, like stain treatments or like backing, or there are things like that that you can do that help make it more user friendly. But we also have to think about like who the client is and how well they're actually going to clean and take care of these things. So that like is a huge factor. And like, are you going to clean the rug every week or once a year? Like, it's so. I think that the other thing is that there's fabrics that look like linen that maybe aren't, and that we're using that kind of thing. So we do a lot of custom work in that way to kind of achieve what we want and be able to get the rub counts or durability that we need. But actually, truthfully, a lot of it ends up being custom because we have the quantities and can do that.
It's what she said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did the journey begin? I mean, obviously you're doing hotels that are hundreds of millions of dollars now, but where did the journey begin? How did you get to design hotels?
Well, for Champalimaud's story, at least, our founder, Alexandra, just paved her way and did it. I mean, she was like, out there herself, getting all these projects, doing it all. Like, she paved the way for us to be able to do that. we started in Canada and then moved to New York, and her first hotel project was, she always says it was a brothel that they wanted to turn into a hotel. And like, that was the thing that sort of kickstarted her. She just kept applying for competitions. I mean, it's different now, like there still are competitions and you still are sort of bidding for that work and like vying for the job. But, you know, now we're fortunate that people also just want us and they're like, we want you. So, you know, we still have to work hard to get those projects.
We do.
Yeah.
And with Gray Davis and myself, Gray, by the way, Gray is in the audience. He wasn't going to be here, but he's so. No, we were a residential design firm for architecture and design for houses and apartments in New York, and we always wanted to do hospitality. So we started off by we designed a restaurant, and then, you know, from the restaurants came the hotels. But and sometimes it is sort of storybook, where I think we had just finished a restaurant, St. Cecilia restaurant in Atlanta, which is a totally cool place, and we won a best of year or an award for that. And afterwards, Kemper Hires, who worked for Starwood, came up and said, "Hey, do you guys want to design a hotel with us?" And it was the one hotel in Miami, which we designed. So that was sort of, sometimes things just happen in the right way.
Yeah.
We have a mic.
Good question.
Hi, thank you. I'm just curious because I feel like with hospitality projects, things move or seem to move very slowly. There's a lot of meetings back and forth, and I'm curious from you two and your perspective in the business, is there a sweet spot on lead times, or does it really just depend case by case, project by project? Because I heard you say that you do a lot of things custom, or you typically do a lot of things custom, and customs do usually have longer lead times than stocked items. So is there like a sweet spot that you try to work within or arrange?
It honestly totally depends on the project. For example, the Cooper, we've literally had contracted now for 10 years and it's still not open. So, I mean, like, that one didn't have a rush. Where we're working on Hotel Bel Air and redoing what we renovated 15 years ago. We're redoing the rooms now again, and we want them done really quickly because we want to get the model done and then go into rollout. So in that way, it's quick, and we want it done by end of July. So we're working with vendors that we're able to commit to that timeline. And sometimes you're just sort of like strong-armed into saying like, okay, you can do it, so it's you. It totally just depends on the project, but you know, a better lead time is always a better chance to make it in. But yeah.
I mean, also with the hotels that we do, you always start with a model room, so that tends to be kind of on a faster track. So if you can get your product into that, then it's, even though the hotel might not be done for 10 years, at least you're sort of in the running, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, given the topic of collaboration, how important the collaboration is with the ownership. Because I remember years ago, for example, Andre Putman halted work on the BlackRock Boca Raton because they kept making reselections. There's a thing where a lot of developers will use a firm's name like yours to get financing on a project or just to announce the project, and then mischief making can happen. Do you have to deal with that at all?
I think there's a general sense now, I think, in the design industry, that collaboration's a really positive thing to do, and you're right. You know, if you're a bankable name for refinancing and whatever, I'm sure that's part of the equation. I'm sure they don't just hire us because they love what we do. Mm-hmm. There's some other reason behind it, but everybody we talk to in the industry, I think they're completely open and actually encouraged by the opportunity to work with other firms because it's fun. It makes it in the meetings. It's fun, and
Yeah.
there's good.
You can bounce ideas off of each other. I mean, it makes it ultimately better because it's not looking like two entirely detached things. It's looking like there was alignment between and collaboration between the designers and the operator and the ownership group. And it makes for a lot of opinions, which sometimes is like too many, but it's part of the job.
Hi, my name's Leanne. I'm from Remains Lighting out in Brooklyn, New York, and we make the lighting there. So to me, hospitality is very much equated with VE. Can you describe what are the aspects of the projects that you're most likely to VE and that have the most significant impact moving the needle? And then what are the aspects of the projects that you're going to bat for so it does not get VE'd?
What am I going to bat for? It just depends. In the St. Regis, we have a really expensive coffee table in the concierge area. And like that, I went to bat for because I'm like, this is like literally a piece of jewelry. It was a collection that our company actually did with Charles Brannan, and I'm like, we need this. Like, this is too good to not have. VEing fabrics is super easy. It does move the needle usually significantly because there's so much of it required. But the guest rooms really are the place to tackle because there are more of them, and kind of letting the public areas, if you're thinking about it in that way, have the more. That's a great way to move the needle and make a significant impact in the VE process.
Yes, yeah.
We knew someone was going to ask us.
I knew. We were talking about this before. My favorite project ever is always the last project for me. Actually, the most recent project I toured that's air quote finished was the Apogee project that we worked with Hart Howerton. So, your project.
Yeah. I don't have one, so I can't answer that.
Okay, so I hear you say that you're using obviously commercial rated things, blah, blah, blah. But things happen in years to come, right? A cleaning crew uses the wrong spray, things get tattered, beat up, all the things, but it's your name on it. So do you do anything, is there anything in your contract that every few years or something you go check in, not to do a whole remodel, but just freshen things up so it just doesn't look tattered or get tattered?
Hotels usually have some sort of capital put away every year for maintaining that kind of thing. So it's, they reach out to us for sure. We know when something needs to be reupholstered or a strip of carpet needs to be redone or something like that. But they have money squirreled away for that, and then we just bill hourly, or I don't know.
Luckily too, we work for brands that have really pretty good programs for maintenance.
Yeah.
I was at the Astir Palace a few months ago, and that property is 10 years old now, close to that, and it looked pristine, looked perfect. They had keeping really good care of everything, and it is nice to see, because sometimes if you visit one that doesn't look that great. Yeah. So yeah, it's both ways.
Great. We might have time for one or two more. Is there any more? Maybe not. Thank you guys so much. This was
Thank you.